So, hello again. Today, we are exploring a topic that I feel must be explored, and that is the topic of food and all the trauma around it. Yes, there is trauma around food, and unnecessarily so, I might add. So, how many of you actually have memories as a child of fighting with your primary caretaker around food? Most people become parents without ever resolving their own food issues. I believe that before one becomes a parent, one needs to heal one's issues around food. Otherwise, we pass it down from generation to generation to generation. Often it is multiplied with each generation. And is there any wonder then that there's so much illness, both mental illness, physical and emotional illness around food? We have so many food related illnesses and diseases. It is catastrophic. It's actually an epidemic as far as I'm concerned, which is why I'm devoting this video to this a very issue in the hopes that I might be able to reach out and someone will listen enough and realize it stops with me. No more of this. I will not continue this trauma anymore. So much drama around food when food is actually one of the most nourishing and nurturing aspects of ourselves. You see, food is part of us. It's not something that exists on the outside of us because we are part of nature and food exists all in nature. We go to nature to get our food. Nature gives it to us. And then we determine what we do with the waste products of it. Do we put it back into the earth and to make sure that the soil is remineralized, or do we just discard it mindlessly and hope to goodness never to see it again? This whole trauma has everything to do with how we procure our food, what we do with it when we get it, and how we dispose of the waste. So it's a cycle. And we keep repeating it over and over because we're not mindful enough about changing any of this. So think about this for a moment. When you were a child or when you're around children and you see them playing with their food, they mash it, they take it and they put absolutely all of their little energies and their delight into mashing it up and making it palatable and throwing it and spurting it all over the place, and they have fun with it. And what do? Most of the time? We tell them to stop and we punish them and we prevent them from playing with their food. All animals play with their food. Just think about it. Have you ever seen a cat, whether it's a wild cat or a domesticated cat, play with their food beforehand? It's inherent in all of us. We all are meant to play with our food. This is how we connect all of our five senses with the food. So children are very tactile. So in order for them to really connect with the food, they have to touch it. They have to touch it first. They have to smell it. They have to listen to it as they play with it or as they chew it. And they also have to taste it. So they're constantly doing this, even with things that we don't think they should be tasting, like dirt, which, by the way, contains a lot of minerals for them. Well, not all soil does anymore, but it used to, but all wild places do. And we need to start looking at why it is that we expect children to behave around food and behave a certain way around food. We need to allow them to explore all of their five senses and the joy of being here in a body on earth and explore how food fits in to that body and into their lives. Instead of developing lifestyle issues around food, it becomes just simply part of their lives. Not something that they obsess about, think about a lot, but which they give gratitude for, which they welcome, and to which they also return their own energies. So I'm thinking about, for example, all the different issues that we face around food and all the memories we have around food. I have a particular memory around food of not wanting to eat meat after I had an incident with a cow and found out that it was being killed And I'll go into this in another video in greater detail. And the reason why it was being killed was so that I could have meat, which I couldn't stand anyway. I hated meat. So to connect it with that, I was horrified. And what I used to do as a child, I would cut it up in tiny bits and pieces, because I was always being told I had to eat it. And I would cut it up and I would put it on the sides of the plate, so that in the middle of the plate, it was either empty, so it looked like I ate everything, or the middle of the plate, there remained just the things that I wanted to eat, which was rice, the pasta, the potatoes, all those beautifully colored vegetables with which I was so in love. And I didn't want that meat. And after a time, I realized sometimes they would give me a big one, big pieces, whereby even putting it against the sides of the plate didn't work. So I would start taking it, and when I thought no one was looking, I'd throw it under the table for the cat to eat. Unfortunately, this cat was also an outdoor cat, and of course, which all cats really are, and was used to catching lizards and mice and eating them raw. So it didn't want any cooked meat at all. So to this cat, this was inferior. So it just smelled and played with it and left it under the table for me then, as a child, to deal with about how am I going to discard it without anyone finding out and without getting into trouble. So my whole issue was around meat was that I would get into trouble around not wanting it and being forced to do something that I didn't wish to do. So why do we do this to children? Children know exactly what they want to eat. I had a client who was a medical doctor, and she said to me once, I'm having the greatest problem with my little girl. She will not eat anything but bread and bell peppers raw. I don't know what to do. And I said, why do you need to do something? She said, she needs nutrients. I need to feed her. I need her to get proteins, and I need her to get all of these nutrients in her little body so she can grow. And I said, don't you think that her body instinctively knows this? Why don't you allow her to eat what she wants? She goes, I can't do that. I'm a doctor. I could be brought up for charges of child neglect. And I said, no, why don't you? You're not neglecting your child if you allow her own inner instincts to take over. Why don't you let this craze she has right now, this craving she has for bell peppers and for bread, run its true course. When she's ready, her body's ready for other things, she will start incorporating them. And she was just horrified at this advice that I gave her. But then the battle continued, and then we spoke about it. I said to her, would you like to traumatize her around forcing her to eat things she doesn't want to eat? And she said no. She didn't even realize that's what she was doing. So she stopped, and she let the child eat the bread and the bell peppers. And guess what? The child eventually moved on to other foods. Every child knows instinctively exactly what their body at that moment in time needs and will go for it. What do? We tell them that their own instincts are not good enough. So they're not good enough. What they know to be true for them is not good enough. And we start that whole process of, you're not good enough. I know better. You must do this. And they go against their instincts. We're already teaching them how to eat by permission only what they're told to do, and not by instinct. Children, especially babies, love to play with their food, and they need to be allowed to do that. All of us do. All of us animals do. We are also animals, and we need to allow it. In fact, I would invite you to partake in that play with them. You might actually enjoy it too. So please think about actually taking part in it and participating in it instead of stopping it and putting a stop to it. Let children enjoy their childhood. Let babies totally and completely thrive with what they wish to do and who they are. Of course, if they're going to be taking this piece of food and throwing it across the room and breaking some things, then they need to see what happens when they do that. But that doesn't mean that you punish them for playing with their food. You know, food has so many memories. There are memories, specifically I recall in Israel, of people that I knew who as children had survived the Holocaust. And they had such strong memories around one particular food, and they could not eat this food, nor could they be around some of them at a table that served, this is cabbage. They could not tolerate being around cabbage because in the concentration camps, all they had was cabbage soup. So of course they had these grotesque and just horrendous memories around cabbage that they could not eat it for enjoyment afterwards. Uh, so that's a big issue. And so we need to know when we're dressing people, do not force people. I never gave them cabbage to eat if they came to my house. I never forced any of this stuff on them that they didn't want to eat. But, I hear people saying all the time, oh, come on, it's cabbage. It's so healthy for you. Have it. No. Respect the fact that this person has memories around this. You don't have to know about them. Just respect that they have their own memories and they do not wish to indulge in that. And if somebody was beaten and yelled and screamed at around a particular food, of course, that's what, for them in their own memories, is what it signifies. That's what it means for them. They have a connotation around it to suffering. So do not force it on them, please. Do not teach them that they have to eat protein or calories. That's not what they need to do. They need to eat what instinctively they feel like having. And then when we find foods that we love, for example, I love oranges. And I was on a kibbutz one summer learning how to pick oranges. I came away totally different because I was addicted to eating or having freshly squeezed orange juice every morning. After that summer on the kibbutz, waking up at 4 o'clock, by the way, I loved waking up at 4 o'clock. I found out, and that was a huge discovery to me, that that's when the energy in the earth shifts. And I loved being awake at the break of dawn. I felt this energy just open up in me and just poured from me and through me and into me that I never feel at any other time of day. So I started waking up, and ever since then I've woken up between 4 and 5 in the mornings. And it's interesting because after picking the oranges and realizing that they would pick me back, I would be scraping my fingers and my fingernails and my fingertips. I didn't realize that one had to suffer in picking oranges. I had a total different appreciation and a total different honoring of the people who worked in orange groves. And to today, I feel so grateful every time that I purchase oranges or somebody makes me precious squeeze oranges. I realize all of the sweat and tears and the energy that goes into getting this to me. So I have since totally and completely approached oranges with a whole different mindset because I got to appreciate what went into it. We need to start appreciating all the people that go into getting us our food, and not just getting the food, but we need to realize too that once we get it and then we participate in eating it, what do we do with the waste? Do we just throw it out and pretend and hope we never see it again? Or do we recycle it? Do we compost it? Do we put it back into the ground to remineralize the earth? So, because the soil is very depleted of minerals nowadays, most soil. And so we need to remineralize it. So it's very important to realize that this whole cycle of food, the whole food chain, the whole food cycle, we need to take part in, otherwise we become very disconnected with our food. And when we're disconnected with our food, we are more apt to create trauma and tears around it. So please, if you are a parent or you are a teacher or you work in the lunchroom of a school or you are a caretaker, please do not traumatize the elderly nor children or anyone in your life around food. Allow them to have their likes and dislikes. Allow them to be what people call picky. Do not ever call a person picky with food again. Allow people to eat instinctively. Do not traumatize them and do not force them into what you believe they ought to be doing. That is your belief. You keep that to yourself and let them have their own beliefs. So please, I ask of you, do not traumatize people around food anymore. Allow people to eat exactly what they wish to eat, when they wish to eat it, and how they wish to eat it, and enjoy your own time around food rather than restricting your own self and creating more trauma for you as well. So we will be talking about this more in greater detail as we go along. If you'd like to hear more, please click on the subscribe button or the like button right there. And until next time, be mindful, be joyful, and be truthful.